So there are two luminaries. I've noticed that certain groups only use one luminary, meaning they'll use either the sun or the moon in order to determine feast days and years. But each luminary works independently in order for them to work together. Now, I've already gone over the sun luminary, which gives us our days, and so many of those days equates to a year. Now we're going to jump into the moon, and then afterwards we're going to have an example of both the sun and the moon to see how we determine our first feast day to get the following feast days all in line. The purpose of this is, look, there's one sun and there's one moon, but yet in Israel there's like 30 different Passovers, and that's a problem when, again, there's one sun and one moon. This is just to put things in their proper perspective. And again, also, there's only one book that demonstrates how the luminaries work. People have a problem with the book rather than just looking at the book and seeing the truth in it. But we're going to go to Enoch 78:3. It says, these are the two great luminaries whose orbs are as the orbs of heaven, and the dimensions of both are equal. Okay, so the sun and the moon are the same size. Let's move forward. Well, let's actually start at the top. It says the names of the sun are these: one Oriaries and the other Tomas. So I'm going to use this graph from the first video dealing with the sun. The sun has two extremes. It's high in the summer, we call that the summer solstice, and the least in the winter, which is the winter solstice. So when you see this, that's what that's talking about, the quote unquote names. We're more familiar with the European names, but that's actually what it means. It says also the moon has four names. The first is Asonia, the second is Ebla, the third Benassi, and the fourth Ire. So there's some speculation on this. The speculation is that it's the red or blood moon, the yellow moon, the white or full moon, and then the blacked out new moon. That's what the speculation says. But from studying, it shows that this is the new moon, the full moon, the first in half moon when the light is filling in the moon, and the pouring out half moon opposite of that moon. Now the moon is pretty simple. It basically, in a nutshell, it fills up with light and pours out the light that it received 12 to 13 times a year. That's basically it in a nutshell. And also, we're going to see that the moon has its months and the sun has its months. That's why there's two Hebrew names for month, because there's two luminaries. That's why it's disrespectful to pick and choose your favorite luminary and base your feast days off of one instead of harmonizing both together. But we're going to see how the moon pours out right here. 78:9 of Enoch, it says, during its diminution on the first day, its light decreases a 14th part. On the second day, it decreases a 13th part. On the third day, a 12th part. On the fourth day, an 11th part. On the fifth day, a 10th part. And on the sixth day, a 9th part. On the seventh day, it decreases an 8th part. On the 8th day, it decreases a 7th part. As we continue, on the 9th day, it decreases a 6th part. And on the 10th day, it decreases a 5th part. On the 11th day, it decreases a 4th part. And on the 12th day, it decreases a 3rd part. And on the 13th day, it decreases a 2nd part. On the 14th day, it decreases a half of its 7th part. And on the 15th day, the whole remainder of its light is consumed. Now, as we jump down to verse 14, it says, and when it is wholly extinguished, that's when it's completely consumed. All of the light is poured out. Its light is consumed in heaven, And on the first day, it is called the new moon. Very simple. That's why it's new, because this is a new cycle of filling up and pouring out. For on that day, light is received into it. It's clear as day. That's why it's also disrespectful to get rid of the baby with the bathwater, because you've heard something about, oh, it's the book of Enoch. But we're supposed to be using discernment and not just passing on nonsense information. This actually shows us how the luminaries work. If you don't have this book, all you're gonna do is guess, and you're gonna pull and hold on to your favorite luminary, and you're gonna be throwing your feast days off. That's why this is pertinent to know, because our feast days are based upon this. So once again, the moon fills up with light until it's full, and it pours out until it goes out into another new moon. New meaning literally it's new. Hey, I'm new again, because I'm ready to be filled up with light. Okay, so we're going to jump down to Sirach 43, and this might be familiar to a lot of people. Starting at verse 7, it says, from the moon is the sign of feast, a light that decreases. We just read about how it decreases in her perfection. The month is called after her name, increasing. That's very important. Increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the expanse of heaven. Okay, so again, the Bible says that the moon decreases and increases, but Enoch shows how it does so. Now we're going to see how this comes to play. Okay, this is going to be a real live example of how to determine feast days using both luminaries. We're going to start with the first feast day of the year, Exodus 12:2, as it is pertinent to the Passover. This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. So we have two increments of time here. We have the month, and then we have the year. So since it says the first month of the year, the month is subject to the beginning of the year. So we have to determine first the beginning of the year. Well, we've done that already in our first video dealing with the sun luminary. The sun begins at the end, just like the moon. The new moon begins at the end of the previous moon. No different from this. The year begins at the end of the previous, which is marked at the so-called spring equinox. That's the beginning of the year. 9 parts of light to 9 parts of darkness, as we've covered again in our first video. Now after this, we pinpoint the first month of the year, because that's what Exodus 12:2 says. So now we have to find the first month of the year. Well, if you don't have a short attention span, we've covered in Sirach that moon and month are synonymous. The moon is called after the month. So we have to find the first month or moon of the year. So this means the first new moon of the new year. Well, we know that the new moon is when it's completely blacked out. See how this all connects? We're using both luminaries. We first pinpoint the beginning of the year with the equal parts of day and night, the equinox. After that solar event, we go to the lunar event of locating that first new moon of the year. Let's jump down to verse 6. It says, and ye shall keep it, talking about either the lamb or the goat, up until the 14th day of the same month. That's really it in relevant part. So now we're shifting down from month to 14 days. So it's going back to using the sun. Okay, because we know from sundown to sundown is a day. So that's the day of the Passover at evening. So it doesn't make sense to have all these different Passovers, because certain people don't want to humble down to the fact that there's only 2 luminaries. You know, you have to use both of them in harmony the way that you're supposed to, as the Bible says. Again, I know people have a beef with the book of Enoch, but this is not the book of Enoch. This is the Luminaries. That's what goes right over people's heads, is the fact that this is the Luminaries that we're talking about. It's discrimination against a book for no logical or factual reason. But that's all for now. Till next time, as it is written, and I'm out.